Hi everyone, and welcome to the Multilogin GeoSurf webinar. My name is Ben, and here with me is Stan, Project Manager at Multilogin, Noam, GeoSurf Support, and Alon, GeoSurf Head of Growth. Today we're very happy to team up with our partners Multilogin and show you how GeoSurf can bring immense value to your business, how easy setup is with Multilogin, and finally answer your questions and queries at the end. If you don't already know, GeoSurf is one of the leading residential proxy providers in the world, with over 2 million IPs worldwide, 10 years of experience in the industry, and over 130 geolocations, and many more benefits. We're going to take questions in the chat panel and answer them at the end of the webinar, so please stay patient, and we will get to them. Stan will cover browser fingerprint and best practices, followed by Alon and Noam, who will take you through different rotation types and demonstrate a live integration session. Okay, Stan, it's over to you.
Hi, Stan. Yes. Just give me a second. I'm just sharing the screen right here. Okay. Okay, guys. Hi. My name is Stan. Could you please write in the chat that you see the presentation so that I am aware that I can start talking? Okay, nice one. Excellent. Okay, so I kind of want to make it more entertaining, more so you guys actually participate in this webinar. I know guys told that we will keep the answers till the end. We can leave them the hardest one till the end, but if you have some questions, just make them, and if I will find something that is very relevant to what I have just talked, or some very interesting questions, we will cover them in this presentation. Okay, other than that, I have another question, is that do you hear me well? Do you hear me well? So that I know that I can start talking. Okay, good. Okay, so let me briefly explain for those that are not quite aware of what Multilogin is that basically before Multilogin, you had to set up multitudes of machines, virtual machines, multiple computers, laptops, in order to seem as if you're accessing any particular website from different devices. In Multilogin, it's possible to do without setting up those things. It's possible to do in a virtualized browser environment by altering so-called browser fingerprints. And in this webinar right now, we will talk about these browser fingerprints. However, instead of talking too technical, we will talk about principles. Don't get me wrong, there will be some technical stuff covered as well, but in order to achieve best results in masking different browser fingerprints, we kind of need to understand what are the principles behind them so that we can mask them effectively for best results. During Multilogin development and different research types, we came to a conclusion that there are three main principles you need to be aware of for best possible results, and it's uniqueness, consistency, and blending in. I will talk about each and type of this principle. We'll talk about different practical things that you can do in order to follow these principles. And if you have any questions, I will try to cover them at the end of each section. Okay, let's start from uniqueness. Okay, so for those of you that do not know, there's so many browser fingerprints that website can see. Yeah, we can change IP addresses. We can change them, and this will ultimately make us seem that we are accessing from different locations. However, in 2019, websites are able to gather browser fingerprints and can understand that from which devices you're accessing. So if you're simply changing your IP address, this is probably not enough, because websites will see that you're always accessing from the same computer configurations. And on this slide, you can see all the fingerprints that I've included here. The list is not the full list. This is one of the most popular ones. And the most important thing is that this list continues to grow. The type of things that website can see are browser types, user agent, screen resolution, language header, notorious hardware fingerprints such as Canvas, WebGL, and audio context. You can see your list of installed media devices, list of plugins, and list of fonts. And you can imagine if you're just changing an IP address, it's just not enough. You simply need to make these values unique in order to always seem as a unique user. Probably the most important question you might be asking, what kind of values should you mask? Like how you should mask them? And the answer to this question actually relies on how you're planning to use multiple online identities. For example, if you are managing social accounts, it's very likely that you need to mask all of these fingerprints. But if you're building some sort of scraping solution, then probably you would not need to think about all of them. The reason behind it is that any type of website that gathers this type of information, it needs to increase latency of the browser loading pages. So if the website wants to gather a list of fonts or your Canvas fingerprint, it basically tells itself, okay, I'm going to take this fingerprint, but the page would load more slowly. So if it's scraping solutions that you're building, you probably need to care only about those ones which can be gathered very fast. And these are your browser type, user agent, screen resolution, language header, basically those which are placed in your navigator object. For social accounts, it's probably you should take care about all of these values because, well, intrinsically speaking, there is always a security check where the website can trigger additional checks and allow some pages to load more slowly to get more information about you. So this is uniqueness. Yeah, you need to basically create your browser profiles, your unique online identities, not only by changing your IP address. You need to take care about your about the fingerprints themselves. So guys, if you have questions about this part of uniqueness or anything else, you may actually use the question and answer, the questions here at Zoom, so I can maybe answer some of them. So Tony asked, will the slides be available afterwards? Yes, of course, we can attach it somewhere after the presentation. Okay, I'm continuing on to the next one. So I see a question how we can manage Facebook accounts. If you're planning to manage multiple Facebook accounts, then any type of website will be able to see these browser fingerprints. You will need to take care of these browser fingerprints. In Multilogin, all of these browser fingerprints, which are listed on the slide, are changed and made unique for each browser profiles you create. I see Patrick is asking, when I create a new profile as a normal and with the IP it creates, yes. Well, the thing is, yes, it creates, well, not entirely. If you're not changing any fingerprints, the website will see that the IP has changed, but it still sees the same browser and hardware configuration. So you need to take care of the browser fingerprints. Okay, I'm going to the next section. If you have some questions, I will answer them at the end. We need to still go on the slides. The next principle we're going to talk about is consistency. So, consistency is basically an idea that all of your browser parameters and IPs should be consistent with one another. An obvious example would be that you need to think that your IP and browser parameters are consistent. A good example of this would be the browser time zone. There is a fingerprint, which you can call browser time zone, which communicates to the website in which time zone you're located. And if the location of your IP address is different to this browser time zone, websites can detect it. Another notorious fingerprint is WebRTC IP. WebRTC is basically like a communication protocol which is built into the browser. And because of this communication protocol, it requires constant access to your IP address. Which means that if you take a normal Firefox or Chrome and go to the proxy settings, change the IP address, and go to any type of website, the website will still be able to see your real IP address using this communication protocol. So it's like a super leak. It basically means that if you still hide your IP address with HTTP proxy, your real WebRTC your real IP will still be leaked. Another thing is DNS inconsistency. With certain proxy providers, you may come into a situation where the DNS of that proxy may not be changed, or it might be from a different country than the IP address, which is very bad and what usually doesn't happen with normal users. This issue should always be handled on the proxy provider side, and I'm happy to say that GeoSurf, after countless of tests of GeoSurf proxies, we can say that there is no DNS issues with GeoSurf. They handle it very effectively. Another thing is geolocation API. Geolocation API is like when you go to Google Maps and Google says, Google wants to know your location, and you have two buttons, allow or block. If you click allow, the geolocation API will start working, and it will start analyzing your local network card, where exactly you're located. And so this basically means that if you are changing an IP address and you're just changing the IP address on a normal browser and click allow on Google Maps, it will still be able to get your real location. I'm happy also to say that in Multilogin, browser time zone, WebRTC IP, and geolocation API are substituted automatically. So when you go and launch a browser profile in Multilogin, it takes the information of that time zone, takes your real IP and substitutes it in the WebRTC plugin. It also puts a correct time zone where your IP is located. And same for geolocation. Now, websites can get even more deep with analysis of your browser instance. A very, very simple example is that, for example, if you're building some scraping solution, you're changing the user agent. You're changing the user agent, but if you're not thinking about changing the platform value, which is also very similar to what user agent is in a technical sense, and if you're changing the user agent, not the platform value, website will see that you've basically changed the user agent, but OS is different. There's also, as I've told, website can get access to the list of fonts. And because different systems have different fonts usually installed, so there's going to be a different set for fonts for Windows, a different set for fonts for Macs, websites can cross-reference your user agent platform value and check what list of fonts you have. And if they don't, if they are not the same, then websites may think that you're changing something. Same for screen resolution. Macs have slightly different screen resolution than Windows. And if you're if you're emulating a Mac user from Windows, then you're going to have a bad time. Another thing is canvas fingerprint. Yeah, canvas fingerprints, very, very notoriously dangerous fingerprints. For those of you that do not know, it's basically the browser draws an image in your browser. This image is hidden. It takes this image and then converts it into a hash. And because there's very limited amount of computers available, these hashes will be different. The image itself will be different. And because different systems will have different hashes, it can also cross-references these hashes with operating systems. I'm also happy to say that user agent and platform value in Multilogin are created as pairs. Same for list of fonts. If you're creating a Mac user, you'll have Mac fonts. If you're creating a Windows, you will have Windows fonts. And the same story for screen resolution. Probably the most important question here is, what should you think about? Like, what should you consider? Well, if you are, again, managing social accounts, quite important to do all of these things, because websites have an option to increase latency and get as much information from you as possible. If it's a scraping solution, I would suggest thinking about browser time zone, since it's very easy to retrieve and it doesn't require a lot of loading on the web page. And WebRTC IP. Since most of the bots are actually, most of the bots on the internet have WebRTC disabled, it's quite important not to only not leak your IP, but also it's important to not have it disabled. And the only option here is to actually substitute the WebRTC public IP with your real proxy public IP address. Also for scraping guys, probably will need to think about user agent and platform value as well. But again, in Multilogin, they kind of are created into pairs. Okay, so I have some questions here. I have some questions from Nick. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So I see anonymous attendee. When Multilogin modifies the fingerprints, does it make sure the values make sense in combination with other fingerprints? Yes, absolutely, exactly. It first of all, it considers the location of your IP address and substitutes the correct browser time zone, WebRTC geolocation. Same for user agent, platform value, OS, list of fonts, screen resolutions, as I've told. Is there any way to determine what properties a site is trying to access? It's a good question. However, it's very likely that any type of website will retrieve as much stuff as possible, like as much stuff as possible. The correct question here would be what values, how does it analyze these values? Yeah, so not what it takes, but how it analyzes these values. So in order to understand like what it takes, one of the only solutions would be to go into the web page code, source code, and try to understand what are the functions responsible for retrieving any type of parameter. It's a very notoriously long process. It's a very difficult process. You may also download an extension called Do Not Fingerprint Me, which tells you exactly what fingerprint the browser is trying to retrieve, or at least it can determine why is it trying to do it. I'm sorry, like at least it can determine to a certain extent if any type of browser, any type of website is trying to get that browser. However, to understand how it analyzes, the only way is to actually do experiments and see what values affect the end result. So there's a question from Nick is asking about 100% uniqueness. I assume you're talking about canvas fingerprints. So currently masking mechanisms do make it 100% unique. However, it's important to know that it's not always a super red flag. It's a super bad thing. Yes, it may affect the overall trust scores, but if you have other things in place and other things are consistent, then it shouldn't be that of a big deal. Multilogin is not based on a virtual machine. It's based actually on the browser, on emulated browser instances. So MB is asking extensions. We will cover this at the end. API and stuff will be covered at the end. So. So Nick, these are browser profiles, yeah. So these are kind of like it's a browser profile, which is altered on a deep level, on a deep code level, that all these things that the website can retrieve are managed by Multilogin. Instead of complicating it, I would just suggest that you go to multilogin.com, download it, and see for yourself. Okay, if there are some answers still not answered, let's cover them at the most interesting ones at the end. We have to continue. Okay, and the final thing is blending in. So the main principle about blending in is that you create browser identities in a way that they kind of reflect a normal distribution of users. They kind of reflect real traffic and real numbers of users. And in order to make a more practical approach to understanding blending in is, for example, simply browser type. With your scraping efforts or social media accounts, you kind of want to utilize the most popular browsers, such as Firefox and Chrome. According to clicky.com, Firefox and Chrome are the most popular browsers on desktop at the moment. So you kind of can use them in order to better blend in within the within the crowd. In Multilogin, you have access to StealthFox, which is a Firefox-based browser and acts and feels to website as a normal Firefox browser. And we have Mimic browser in Multilogin as well, which acts and feels as a normal Chrome browser. Another thing is correct distribution of fingerprints. Now, this is a very interesting one. So I have a small table right here with user agents. So we have all these fingerprints, but currently it's a simple example with user agents. We have all these users. Some of them have certain amounts of values. Some of them have different values. However, websites check when you basically visit a website will always check how your fingerprint correlates to other users as well. It kind of makes a frequency cap on how frequent the user with such configuration is accessing the website. And it can utilize this data in many ways. And as an example, you will see that this type of user agent, according to our research, has a frequency of 20.6%. This user agent, the second user agent, has a frequency of 5.5%. This basically means that if you're managing social media accounts or creating simple scraping solutions, maybe even more complex scraping solutions, then you kind of need to create these requests which correspond to the normal distribution of users. So you're kind of creating the traffic with the same distribution as the internet exists. I know it's slightly maybe too technical, but if you do get it, it should increase your results quite drastically. Okay, I am checking questions now. Chris has asked if you disabled Java. Currently, in most of the browsers, Java is disabled. I assume you're talking about JavaScript. JavaScript, yes, you can disable JavaScript, and time zone will not be available, but websites can see that JavaScript is disabled and will simply think that you are hiding something and will block your requests. Patrick, you're asking about can the website able to see that you covered something? Yes, absolutely. They can make a consistency check that I've talked on this slide. So if you've missed it, maybe better than what is basically like there are many parameters that website can cross-reference to understand that something is changed. Okay, I have another question from Anonymous. Is that does opening profiles on different Windows hardware will change the fingerprint? Yes, they will change. The reason behind it is that currently the masking technologies work this way, that they apply a filter. However, if you change the initial hardware, but the filter stays the same, the end readout will change anyway. This is the state of technology at the moment, so we suggest using this on a VPS, on a virtual private server, or one particular computer, or on computer with similar hardware. I do want to say that a better technology is on the rise and will soon be available. Okay, yeah, we have quite a few questions. We need to continue. Let's have them at the end. So, integrations. Multilogin integrates with GeoSurf just perfectly. Since Multilogin supports all proxy connections, it works with GeoSurf just perfectly. You can simply create a browser profile, place a GeoSurf proxy into a profile, launch it, and it simply works. And of course, Multilogin you can integrate with Multilogin with Selenium and Puppeteer to automate your different processes. I am finishing now. Most interesting questions we will cover at the end, but I am giving this over to Alan.
Hi guys. Thank you, Stan, for this incredible insights. We'll continue with the Q&As later on. So guys, if you have any other questions for Stan or for us, feel free to type it in the Q&As, and we'll answer every question you ask. All right, so let us start a little bit about GeoSurf. So we are in the market for around 10 years in the proxy industry. We have data center and residential IP network. For your use case, we assume that the residential network is the better solution. Our network consists of 2.5 million real residential devices, and the important thing about them is that they are being used by real users. So whenever you are scraping a web page, a real user has visited that page, and if you're visiting some e-commerce website, there were actually purchases made on those websites. This in itself will increase your success rate and allow you to crawl faster and get better results. In this section, I will go over the IP rotation types that we have. We have 3 rotation types, do some best practices for IP rotation, and talk a little bit about difference between different use cases with IP rotation. So before we start, there are 2 important things that we want to talk about, which is authentication methods. We support 2 different authentication methods. One is by whitelisting IPs. This means that you don't need to have any kind of username or password configured. You can just go on as long as your public IP is whitelisted in our system. You are all set. The other way is by username and password authentication, and this allows you to run your request through multiple machines, run concurrent requests, whether it's from a shared IP if you're using AWS, or from your local IP. So let's start with some dashboard overview. We have cool analytics, which allows you to see your account balance, your usage statistics. We count gigabytes instead of number of IPs. So whenever you sign up to GeoSurf, you actually have access to the 2.5 million IPs. And also we have the ability to give you city IPs and state IPs, and this is all included. So all you have to worry about is doing the configuration. So let's start with
whitelist IP.
Let's start with the IP whitelist, because this is important for high rotation and sticky IPs, which I'll go over in a bit. So you go to the Manage IP section in your dashboard, add the IPs. You can add one IP or multiple IPs, and that's it. As long as you whitelist your IPs, you're all set. So let's start with the high rotation. So high rotation is a phrase we determined to allow you to send or to get one IP per request. So if you'll send 100 requests to the same gateway and port combination, you'll get 100 different IPs from the same location. This means that the rotation is really high and you get a unique IP per request. So how does it work? In step one, you go to the dashboard, you click on the service type. In this case, we'll take country IP. Step two, you'll choose high rotation. Step three, you'll just type in the country. We have 192 countries. In this case, we'll take the United States. And then you get a gateway and port combination. So changing the gateway is always the same high rotation. Changing the port will get you a new IP. So let's do a quick command line check. So now we got an IP from the United States, from a real residential IP with the ISP's Comcast cables communication. Let's do another one, and we'll see that we should get, and we got a new IP from New Kensington, again Comcast, which further identified that it's a real residential IPs, and so on and so on and so on. So how you select the country? Basically, every country has its different ports. So if we'll change it from United States to Germany, for example, you see that we got a different port. For in this case, it's 8080. So all we have to do is change the port over here, and you got an IP from Germany. The next type of IP rotation is sticky IP. Sticky IP is allowing you to bind the IP to a port number. So every country has its own port range. Some countries have thousands and some countries have less. But as long as you are making concurrent connections, switching the IP will get you a new one. So in order to do that, you just choose the country. In this case, we'll take United States. You get a gateway and a port. You'll see here that you got 3 different gateways. One is for 1 minute, the other is 10 and 30 minutes. Basically, when you use the 30 minutes gateway or the 10 minutes or the 1 minute, you have this TTL time, which means that as long as you keep hitting the same port in this 30 minutes interval, for example, you can keep the IP. So potentially, you can keep the IP for hours. And that's it. So if you run this same request, you'll see that we got the same IP all over again.
And if we want to change IP, we just need to change the port. If we switch it to 1, we'll get a new IP from the US.
And you don't have to worry actually about this entire black screen stuff because everything is really, really integrated in Multilogin. So the third part is per session. Session persistence is basically allowing you to bind the IP to a session number. We use the session number within the username. And this is important because this is how you'll configure it to Multilogin. So the way it works is that you get the session number is highlighted here, it's at the last part. And if you'll change the country code, for example, instead of doing it from US, you'll change it to a different gateway. You'll get, let's do Germany, for example. You'll see that you have different gateway, DE 10 minutes, and you'll use DE as the in the username. So let's copy it, see how it works. And we have a really sophisticated password we set up for this webinar. Sweet, we got an IP from Germany. All right, so that's pretty much it on the IP rotation type. before we go into use cases and multi-login integration, let's go over some Q&As. Let's see here. I forgot. Where is it? Oh, here is the chat. What's Stickstrap? All right. So I don't see any further questions. So let's go over the multi-login integration. So now we'll take the part here.
Well, hello everyone. Well, as Alan said, we have a few types of proxies. I set some before the session just to give you an example. This one, I set it as a high rotation. Let's go to the edit. Let's see what I made here. HTTP proxy, GW1@geosurf.io, 8230. I took it from the dashboard. Default high rotation. I'll go to, if I remember correctly, United States. This is the gateway and port. This is the high rotation. And as Alan said, every request, you'll get a new IP. So this time I'm on 41. I'll press enter again. Now I'm from the US, port IP 197 from Florence. I'll click again. Another IP from the US, from Tampa. Okay. Let's go back. Another one is that New York session. I just went to the dashboard, checked the first session, United States. See the IP. I click here. I want IP from the United States, from New York, and New York City. This is the group ID. This is my group ID. This is the location, and this is the session number. If you will see, this is the same thing I put here. Go to edit proxy setting, HTTP proxy, US 10 minutes, GeoSurf IO, port 8000. Very important. All the sessions go through port 8000. My group ID, my location, US-NY-New York, session ID, and my password. Let's go back. This is habitation, this is sticky, this is New York. GeoSurf IO, this is my IP, 227.4 from New York. Because I'm keeping the same session number every time, I'll get the same IP every time. If I want to change the IP, I need to change the session number. Another option is to do the US sticky. We go to city IP, sticky, United States, New York, New York. I used only ports without username and password because my IP is already whitelisted under my account. Let's see in the options. Edit setting, edit proxy setting. As you can see, US Prem, another gateway that we have. This is a session with just IPs from the US, 30 minutes. Okay. Let's see some questions.
All right, guys. Let's stop sharing for a sec. Someone is asking about what's Stickstrap. I don't know what it is. Right. Hi, Luke. All right, so in the Q&As, we have a lot of questions for Stan, so Stan will follow up on it later. If any of you guys still have any questions regarding the proxies, yeah, pretty much let us know, and we'll be more than happy to reply and also get you on board. Another thing I wanted to start discussing with you is use cases. So when you should use high rotation, when you should use TKIP, when you should use per session, and what about cities and states? So use cases for high rotation is pretty unique. So as long as you need to have a different IP on every request, or you're hitting or crawling a website, and only one page at a time and need a different IP every time, and you're doing it at a really high scale, then high rotation is for you. Note that you have to whitelist your IP in this case. All other use cases, if you are trying to do something in social media or any use case which dictates you to go to different or multiple pages, or coming back to the same website through the same fingerprint, then you should use a sticky IP. So why you should use sticky IP? So as long as you're using, as long as you know that you have a dedicated machine, if it's a server or public IP, it's server, and you know the public IP and it's yours, then you can use the sticky IPs. Well, it's pretty simple because all you have to do is change the port, but you are limited to up to 1,000 concurrent connections per gateway. So this is why you should use sticky IPs. But as long as you're using sticky IPs, we suggest you'll use the session persistence, which is really easy also in Multilogin. So session and sticky IPs allow you to also select cities and states, and soon we'll also have ISP and ASN targeting, and this will only be available in the per session option. Additionally, per session allows you to have unlimited concurrent connections, unlimited number of users, unlimited number of sessions, obviously, and unlimited number of cities. So basically, you can access every city that we have in this in our solution. So basically, per session works on every use case. Sticky IPs works on every use case you have the ability to whitelist the IP, and high rotation is pretty much limited to a specific use case where you need to get a new IP on every query you make. Right. So we have a question. This is something from Ben. So if you guys have any questions regarding the, if you guys have any other questions regarding the GeoSurf, feel free to pop it in the chat or mark it in the Q&A. Right. Patrick, hi. So no, this is the beauty of GeoSurf. You don't need to install any software like Luminati to run on your GeoSurf. All you have to do is type in the gateway, port, and username, or gateway and port if you don't use the username and password option, and that's it. The entire integration takes less than 5 minutes. You don't need to install anything. It should be really easy and fast for you. Someone also asked, yeah, great, Patrick. I assume love it. So someone also asked, what's the longest amount of time you can keep a particular IP? So usually, you can bind an IP on a per session basis for up to 4 or 5 hours. but in some cases you will, the IP will drop. In some cases you can even keep it for longer because it's real residential IPs. We don't really control the number of how long you can bind to this specific IP. But the beauty of it, you can always switch to a new IP in that area of proximity. So even if you have the same fingerprint and you use the same IP from the same city, then even if you switch the IP, you will still be unidentified, and we don't limit you with the number of IP switches. Hope I answered Chris's question. I also have another question from Zaki. When using sticky IP, can the same IP be reused, or is it only good for 30 minutes? So the 30 minutes is based on TTL, which is time to live. This means as long as you're hitting or sending requests within 30 minutes, you can keep the IP for longer. So hope I answered your questions. Or also another question: will you be able to get the same IP few days later? Not really. We cannot guarantee that, but as long as you're using the cities or in the future ISPs, you'll be able to get a close enough IPs which will help you to mask your or to keep the same fingerprint. Another question that we have is everything encrypted end to end, or is it possible to see the request? So as long you should use HTTPS requests, and if you do that, everything is encrypted on our end, and there's nothing you need to worry about on that front. We use what?
HTTPS.
We use our own encryption method, which is based on some cybersecurity experts that we have in the company. So I don't know what exactly it is, but it's really good. Another question is whether these our IPs are mobile IPs or desktop. So our IPs are mainly from desktops. We figured out that as long as you have the desktop IPs are faster, more reliable, and when using solutions like Multilogin, you can create the fingerprints and emulate mobiles just fine, and it should do the trick for every type of use case. We do not have mobile carriers available at the moment, but in most cases, based on our experience with our huge customer base, you can do just fine with regular IPs, because usually most users are actually connected to Wi-Fi instead of carrier. All right, so if you don't have any further questions, I don't see any further questions, I will leave the floor for Stan, but before that, I want to get Ben to share his thoughts as well.
Thank you, guys. That was really helpful. Last thing, just really important for everyone to know what we offer here at GeoSurf. With us, each of you will get dedicated customer support and an account manager with every package, full access to the worldwide pool of IPs at no extra cost for state and city level IPs. Very important to note that. Clear usage statistics in our dashboard for better bandwidth management and a high success rate. Now, we have a special offer for you listening. If you sign up today, you will receive $50 off any plan for the first month. That's $50 off. Just reply to the email you received from either myself or Natalie or Alon, any email that you received from GeoSurf, or send a direct email to residential@geosurf.com with your full name, and we will set up your account and introduce you to your dedicated account manager. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Stan, over to you.
Thanks very much, guys. Very interested to always listen about proxies, IPs, as our users also ask us questions where to get good IPs. Yes, indeed, IPs are very important. They are kind of like two sides of the same coin with browser fingerprints. I want to go through some questions left unanswered. I will try to talk about each and one of them very quickly. So the first question is that, can you launch browser profiles with unique IPs at the same time from one machine? Yes, you can, and this is what Multilogin is designed for. So one anonymous asked about it. So you should be able to launch multiple of browser profiles from one machine, and it should be absolutely fine. Elena asked about, does it mean that for social accounts it's better to use Chrome? So yes, it's a good question. It's more of like a debatable question. Yes, so if you would ask me this question 6 months ago, I would say yes, use Chrome or use Mimic, our Chrome browser, because it's the most popular browser and you should use it. However, the thing is that with Firefox, it's becoming increasingly interesting and at how Firefox is developing browsers. Firefox currently are giving more control to users over their fingerprints, and this means that less information will be conveyed to the website. So users will actually be able to block different fingerprints on Firefox. This ultimately means that in Multilogin, you'll be able to block some fingerprints, and the website will not think that it's a bad thing, because most of the Firefox users would do it. So I would say that actually for social accounts it's best to test Firefox and Chrome. They are both good browsers. They both produce good results because they are the most popular ones. So when I talked about correct distribution of browser fingerprints and their creation when you do it, we have stats, we use them internally, but you don't need to think about these stats, because if you use Multilogin, the fingerprints such as user agent will be created in that correct distribution. Patrick also asked, do you have to change the fingerprints manually? No, you go create a profile and the unique set of fingerprints is created. And not only is created, it is created within that correct distribution of fingerprints that I talked about. Then noise. So Patrick is asked about noise. Maybe you can reformulate that question. Am I correct to assume that you're talking about will noise affect, like noise will not affect it in any way. The mechanism will not affect. However, because the noise is applied, it ultimately creates a unique fingerprint, a unique canvas fingerprint. And if the website will utilize statistical analysis to cross-reference your unique fingerprint across other users, it might find that it's too unique. And it might, in certain cases, it may not like it. But then again, it's very important to note that that it doesn't give, like, it's not the sole reason why website block your request or ban your accounts. It's simply one of those factors that websites can consider, and you have different ways on how you can combat it. So you can simply disable the noise function, and your real fingerprint will be given out, and that's not a bad thing, because there's only limited amounts of hardware available in the world, and you'll still be able to blend in, even if one parameter actually is shown. So that's not too bad. Deet asked about mass creating of browser profiles. We have this feature planned, but currently what you can do is use our REST API. What you do is you create a browser profile, define a GeoSurf proxy in the API, and simply create a profile with those 10 GeoSurf proxy ports. Doug asked about, I think I know Doug quite well. I think he's our user. Yes, currently it's you can emulate mobile users to a certain extent by providing mobile user agents and mobile fingerprints. We are working on this, and we might be able to provide something within the next few months. But currently, you have to kind of get the data yourself and set certain properties manually. Arabo, you asked if we can use if everybody would use Canvas, WebGL, and so on, will be suspicious. Well, no, because because everything is created uniquely, so there is no need to worry too much about it, since all parameters are unique. Ben, you asked about yes, gathering, creating browsing history. Yes, you're talking about cookie robots. Yes, this will be quite soon. A timeline for this, I would say that probably you will get a beta feature this month already. By the end of this month, it should be available. Okay, so final question that has been sitting for quite long is from Jer. Can you use Multilogin for Amazon accounts? Yes, what the setup you would need is probably you would have a VPS where you would install Multilogin, where your VAs will be able to access, and you basically launch the browser profile and they will be able to work there. You can also use our session sharing option with sub-accounts. This can be useful, and it is utilized by some of our Amazon users. So I would suggest that you actually go and try Multilogin out. When you download it, you kind of will understand how it should work. It's quite intuitive. Okay, some questions here left. How many browser profiles can be launched, managed at one time? So Multilogin currently limits by the amount of browser profiles you have on your accounts. If you want more accounts, then you will have to go for higher tier packages. Here, if you have like 1,000 browser profiles, you can launch 1,000 browser profiles. The only thing that is limiting you is the resources on which computer you're launching them. So can you, this is a GeoSurf question. I will leave it to the guys. Yes, yes, MB, I think I've answered this question. We currently have REST API, which you are able to use in order to create browser profiles with unique fingerprints. You also have integration with Selenium and Puppeteer. I assume if you are into web scraping, you probably know these tools, and you can integrate Selenium and Puppeteer to automate different processes with Multilogin. If you're talking about extensions in the browser, I would probably maybe say iMacros, but it's not the best solution since it becomes very robotic. And if you are web scraping, probably you would need to take care about loading times as well. And if you're uploading iMacros all the time, it can increase the loading time of that browser profile. But yeah, guys, we have just recently launched our automation pricing. What I want to say is that you are more than welcome to come on board. With GeoSurf, you can get excellent proxies. With us, you can get help and support regarding fingerprints and setting up your different scraping solutions, not only scraping solutions for social profiles. Simply write to our support and we'll be able to get you on board. You can simply go to our website, multilogin.com, download a Multilogin, and assign for a trial and simply test out the features and see for yourself what it is, how it works. If it's automation, please definitely write to our support at multilogin.com so we can offer you an automation trial so you can test different features such as integration with Selenium, integration with Puppeteer, and our REST APIs as well. I do want to say one final thing. Our Selenium is actually our own Selenium build. It's stripped away out of different things that actually communicate to the website that it's Selenium. So it's our own Selenium hardened version, and you'll be able to get access to that if you assign for our automation trial and for automation plans as well. I think I've covered all the questions in the chat. Alan, what do you think?
Yeah, we have. I have a question regarding Zach. Zach, you're more than happy to drop us an email to residential@geosurf.com, and we'll go on a call and further discuss it with you. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. I'll leave the floor to Ben.
Yeah, just wanted again to say thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you very much for Multilogin, and we're looking forward to answering your questions and having you sign up as our customers.
And yeah, we're actually sharing it right now. We shared the email. It's residential@geosurf.com. You can also, just drop us an email. We'll be happy to get you guys on board and give you all the support you need. So cheers, guys, and have a great day.
Bye-bye, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for GeoSurf team as well. Amazing webinar, guys.
Thank you, Stan, as well. Forgot to mention your amazing presentation. Cheers.
Bye-bye.